Good morning. And I want to hear that again. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Denise Janssen, your worship associate for today. And I gotta tell you, it's so good to be back here among my beloved community. As we begin, we acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of Cahuilla people. And we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous people and their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cahuilla people whose lands and water we benefit from today. Before we begin, we also want you to know that it doesn't matter where you or your ancestors are from, who you love, your gender identity, your theology, politics, or your immigration status. We welcome all of those who are committed to our core values as expressed in our 7 principles. Together we come to this place to share our hopes, dreams, and visions. We seek to build a diverse and inclusive community that honors our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Thank you for being with us this morning. Before I forget, please silence your phones. You do not want to miss any of the stories that you will be hearing today. And before anything else, please consider making a donation with our virtual offering basket. Your contribution is an important way to support our beloved community. Those of you watching on Zoom, just click on the link provided in our weekly Constant Contact order of worship that you have already received or will receive at the end of this service today through an email link you have. If you are here in the room, there are offering baskets at each door, so you can drop your offering there. As we are returning to life, our UUCOD campus is buzzing with activities this month, so we have a few brief announcements you will want to hear about. Join Walter Gundel and myself at 11:30 in the community room for an 8th principle discussion. Light snacks and water will be provided, so you will be sated until lunchtime. Can't make it to this one? Don't worry about it. There are 3 more dates coming up. Check last Friday's newsletter for the dates and times. Got a favorite nonprofit you'd like to nominate for the 22-23 Share the Plate slate? Starting this Thursday, you will be receiving an electronic nomination form that you can fill out. Don't like electronics? You can have a paper form sent to you. We will again vote on all the nominations prior to our congregational meeting on May 15th. For theater lovers, Script to Stage to Screen presents our own Shirley LeMaster in Inez's Birthday and Then Some on Friday and Saturday, April 22nd and 23rd at 7:30 here. A family curse, a pompous minister, a gay nephew, a redneck brother, and a case of gout, and Loretta Lynn. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, this month, April, is Earth Month at UUCOD. So mark your calendar for 2 important events on our campus that will be honoring Earth Day. On Saturday, April 23rd, join us at 1 p.m. when Desert Movement Arts presents Lack of Water Dance as part of the National Water Dance Project with a performance on our own Peace Labyrinth. They will explore water scarcity, drought, extreme heat, water stealing, and living in an unsustainable environment through choreography and improvisation. There are flyers on the circle table out in the lobby with more info. And the following day, Sunday, April 24th, we will be celebrating Earth Day and investing in our UUCOD sacred grounds with Director of Environmental Resources, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, Katie Burrows, who will be our guest speaker, and LeGrand Velez, who will be our worship leader. We hope you can join us for all these events. More info can be found in last Friday's newsletter, a paper copy of which is outside in the foyer. Want to get the newsletter delivered to your home computer or cell phone? just contact us at admin@uucod.org. And now, Reverend Ian will ring our Tibetan bowl to begin our service, and we will listen to our music for centering.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. And you'll find out why the screen is showing you a picture of a rapidly burning house in a few moments. So just ignore it for now. I love this picture and you'll find out why. However you found us, however many times you've been with us in person or online, welcome and welcome back. We are a congregation grounded in our commitment to love and an evolving tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving, loving, just future for all. We gather today as our ancestors gathered around a common flame. We gather as our ancestors gathered to tell the stories of their lives, to hear the stories of their people and of their neighbors and of other people, and to learn and see what made them who they were. Come, let us tell our stories and hear the stories of our neighbors. Come, let's see what makes us who we are. Come, let's worship together. I'm going to tell you a little bit about today's service in a moment, but I want to let you know that Malcolm Swan, who was scheduled to be our accompanist, our piano player today, has tested positive for COVID, and so made a choice for our safety and his health to stay home today. But yesterday, he took time and made some recordings. And so we're hearing Malcolm play. And Spirit of Life, I'm going to play for you when we get to that point. But we're grateful that Malcolm was able to do that for us, and we hope for his swift recovery. So today is a day of sharing stories from around the world and from right here. I'll invite you to embrace these stories and the different structure of our service today with an open heart and a curious mind. Sometimes we'll tell you something that we think about a story, and sometimes we're just going to let it speak for itself. The first story is a Buddhist tale that comes from the third chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Now, the Lotus Sutra is a popular and influential sacred text in Mahayana, or great vehicle Buddhist tradition, and this story is called The Burning House. It is told that the Shakyamuni Buddha spoke to the monk Shariputra. Shariputra, suppose in a certain kingdom there was a great elder. They had many fields, houses, and servants. Their house was large and spacious, but it had only one gateway. Hundreds of people lived in the house. The house was old. Its walls were crumbling, its pillars rotting at the base, its beams and rafters falling down, and dangerous. One day, fire broke out and engulfed the house in flames. The many children of the elder were in the house. The elder, seeing the fire spring up on every side, was very alarmed and thought, "I can get out safely, but my children are in the burning house, enjoying themselves, engrossed in play, without awareness, knowledge, alarm, or any fear. Fire is closing in on them. Pain and suffering threaten, but they don't care or fear and have no thought of trying to escape." The elder thought, "I am strong. I can wrap the children in robes and carry them out of the house, but this house has only one gateway, and it is narrow and small. My children know nothing about the danger. They will be burned up in the fire. I must tell them why I am alarmed and warn them that the house is burning, and then they must get out quickly or be burned up in the fire." The elder called out, "Get out quickly, all of you!" But the children, happily playing, were unwilling to believe and were neither alarmed nor frightened. They didn't even think about trying to escape. What's more, they didn't understand what the elder meant by fire or the house or losing their lives. Then the elder thought, "I have to find some skillful means to get my children to escape from this disaster." Knowing that the children always liked and all the various rare and attractive playthings and curiosities that would please them, the elder said to them, "The things you like to play with are rare and hard to find. If you don't get them when you can, you're going to be sorry. A variety of goat carriages, deer carriages, ox carriages are now outside the gate for you to play with. You must get out of this burning house quickly, and I will give you whatever one you want." I imagine if he told this story today, it would be Nintendo and that kind of thing. When they heard about these playthings, which were just what they wanted, all of the children, eagerly pushing and racing with each other, came scrambling out of the burning house. Then the elder, seeing that the children had safely escaped and were all sitting in the open square and no longer in danger, was very relieved and ecstatic with joy. Then each of the children said to the elder, you can guess this part, "Those toys you promised us, give them to us now." And so the elder gave each of the children the same great carriage. They were tall and spacious, decorated with many jewels. They had railings around them with bells hanging on all four sides. Each of them was covered with a canopy, which was also splendidly decorated with various rare and precious jewels. Around each was a string of precious stones and a garland of flowers. Inside were beautiful mats and rose-colored pillows. Each also had many servants and followers to guard and take care of them. Why was this? Because the great elder's wealth was so inexhaustible, their many storehouses so full of treasure, they thought, there is no limit to my wealth. I shouldn't give inferior carriages to my children. They are all my children, and I cherish them equally. So the Lotus Sutra introduces many of the ideas surrounding Mahayana Buddhism, and through sermons and parables reinforces this idea of skillful means, or the idea that for each person there may be different ways to get to the truth of reality. We see this clearly in this parable as the elder lures his children away from the flames by offering each of them what they desire most, what they need in their lives. But each child eventually receives the same gift, the magnificent cart, the great vehicle. But each is brought to it by individual means. The Buddhist teaching rests on the idea that each person must be brought by skillful means to the truth of reality in the way that suits them best. And stories, like the ones we're going to tell today, stories are skillful means.
Now please join me in reading our chalice aspiration, which can be found in your order of worship or on Zoom. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration.
And now, as Denise lights our candles, will you please join me in the words of our BIOPOC candle lighting? We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as they journey towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. Now, for our opening hymn this morning, we are going to sing Come, Come, Whoever You Are. I'm going to invite you to remain seated for this. I'm going to sing it once through. We're going to do it without piano, and we're going to do it in two parts. So I'm going to sing it once through to you, and then we're going to sing it together twice, okay? And then once we've sung it together twice, I'm going to invite this side of the room to start. I'll bring you in, and then I'll invite this side of the room to start. I will bring you in, and we'll sing it a couple times like that. Does that make sense? Nod your heads. I can't see you smiling, so I'm going to assume. Okay. Goes like this. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come with me, please. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come and again. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Let's do that one more time all together and put a little more emphasis on the k. Ready, and come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come this side. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Well done, thank you.
The second story is the Kauai creation story. The name Kauai means masters or powerful ones. Originally, Kauai told their oral stories through bird songs. These bird songs were social musical stories that lasted many days. The Kauai creation story, when told in bird song, lasts 7 days long. But because I'm telling it in English, I promise not to take that long. In 1943, Kauai elder Francisco Potencio worked with writer Margaret Boynton and recorded stories that were published by the Palm Springs Desert Museum in a book called Stories and Legends of the Palm Springs Indians. Potencio came from a long line of Kauai shamans who were thought to control the forces of the world. He recorded his oral stories because he saw that the elders that knew them were passing away and the younger generation did not know them. One of the stories he told Margaret Boynton was about the creation of the Kauai people. I have adapted and condensed this story from his and other Kauai sources. Any mispronunciations of names and information are accidental, and I apologize in advance. In the beginning, there was nothing but night. Then lightning struck, and all different colors appeared. The night, which is called Tukmiad, and the lightning, which is called Amna, manifested an embryo. But sadly, it died. They wanted a child. This happened several more times, but finally they produced twin boys. These were the first people. The elder boy was Mukat. The younger one was Mukat Tamayawit. As they were feeling their bodies in the darkness around them, they began talking with one another and planning how they were going to create the world in the darkness that surrounded them all. First Mukat created cut tobacco, and Mukat Tamayawit created a pipe. Together they smoked the tobacco in the pipe. Next they created a staff and a bedrock to hold it, for there was nothing for the staff to stand on. They then created two snakes to hold the bedrock, but it would not stay steady, so they made a big pile of rocks, but still the staff would not stay steady. So then they created two spiders, one black and one white, to live at the ends of the world to keep the earth steady. But that didn't help. They created red ants and black ants to study it, but that didn't help. And finally, they created an ocean to surround the earth, and it became steady as it is today. While darkness still enveloped the earth, they created the earth and the clay. Then they created two winds, a cyclone and a whirlwind, to smooth the earth and the clay. From the clay, they created the dog, the coyote, and the owl. Then they set about to form people from the clay. Because of the darkness, Mukat Tamayawit worked carelessly because he could not see, while Mukat carefully felt the earth and clay to create humans as they are today. So that they could see, finally, the brothers created stars and the sun. But the sun would not stay steady and sank into the earth. It came up again in the morning, just like it had done all the days since. With the sun, they could finally see all they had created. And as brothers so often do, they argued about whose creations were better. Mukat looked at Mukat Tamayawit, what he had created. The people. They had faces on the front and faces on the back. They had webbed hands and webbed feet. Mukat says his creations were much better. Mukat Tamayawit says his creations were much better. They argued, and Mukat Tamayawit angrily said that he would withdraw into the earth and bring all they had created, that both of them had created, with him. As he fled, the land that had been smoothed from the two winds buckled and broke, creating the mountains that we see today. With the exception of the people who fled with his brother under the earth, Mukat was able to hold on to all the other creations, including the people that he had created. When the dust finally settled, he was able to see in the daylight that the white clay that he had fashioned made white people. The black clay had made black people. The yellow clay had made yellow people. And the red clay had made red people. But the people were scared of what just happened, and each color of people looked at each other and drew together in groups. They wanted to get away from this place. They were frightened. They all ran away, but Mukat was able to hold on to the red people and keep them with him. These are the first people, the Kauai people. And now, please remain seated as together we sing our hymn for meditation.
Our third story today comes from Egypt, though the source from which I retrieved it tells that it's a story told all over the Muslim world. There was and there was not a time when Joha and his son set out for the market with their donkey walking along behind them. They passed several men sitting outside a shop drinking tea and heard some of their remarks. "Look at that man. How can he be so mean as to make his child walk all the way to the market when he has a donkey the child could easily ride?" Joha immediately picked up his son and put him on the donkey's back. They continued for a while in this way until they passed several women who were also on their way to the market. "For shame," said one woman to another. "Look at that child riding the donkey while he makes his father walk. Doesn't he have any respect for his elders?" Right away, Joha took his son off the donkey and got on in himself. They had traveled only slightly farther when someone else criticized the father for being so selfish, riding on the donkey while making his son walk. In response to this criticism, Joha picked up the child and placed him on the saddle directly in front of him, both on the donkey. Alas, this maneuver also brought forth criticism. "How mean they are to overload that poor donkey like that," cried an old man to his friend. "There is only one thing to do," thought Joha in despair. He and his son dismounted, and after a great deal of effort, Joha managed to heave the donkey up on his own back. Only a little while down the road, everyone was laughing at the stupid man carrying his donkey instead of riding it. Shamefaced Joha put down the donkey, and they continued to the market exactly as they had started, with all three of them walking. Some time later, Joha looked at his son. "So, you see," he said with a wise nod, "it is clearly not possible to please all people. It is better to know what is right, to do what you know is right, and please God." This is the story of Joha and the donkey. This is the time in our service where we share the joys and sorrows of this community here in April. We share in joyful thanksgiving for the safe arrival of our grandson, Levon Jacoby, from Tom and Julia Burbank. Congratulations, welcome. Cheryl joyfully celebrates what would have been 48 years of marriage. "I love you, Bob," he says. There was a piece of paper. I had another piece of paper. There are other joys and sorrows that I know remain heavily in our hearts and quietly in our hearts. Some of us have loved ones who have passed away. Some of us who have loved ones who are ill or suffering. Some of us are in conflict with our loved ones. And today is not a good day for some of us. We hold all of those pieces of ourselves and our community in our hearts. Some of us have great joys today. Some of us experienced small triumphs. Some of us are just feeling good. And so we hold all the parts of ourselves and the parts of our community that are having a wonderful day today. We also hold in our hearts the people of Ukraine, the people of Russia, the people of Europe, people of the world as we continue to suffer in the face, they continue to suffer in the face of war and aggression. May they find safety. May they find comfort and peace. May their families find each other. And may this madness of war end so that all can live in peace. And we share in our hearts today, we share love in our hearts today for our trans and non-binary kin in Alabama especially, but around our country and our world, who face ongoing oppression, aggression, and violence, questioning identity and existence, removing medical care, and a real lack of compassion in much leadership. And so we hold them in our hearts today, and we say, we are with you. Our strength is your strength. Our compassion is your compassion. We insist on knowing that you are beautiful and beloved from the moment you are born. We hold you in our hearts. We pledge to work to build a world worthy of the great love that you represent. All of this we hold in our hearts as we pause together in quiet this morning. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. Long, long ago, there lived a ruler who longed to be just, wise, and generous. He was, however, the opposite. His temperament was changeable as the wind. When things went the way he desired, he gloated and puffed about. When something unpleasant came to pass, he stomped and wailed in a childish fit. He played favorites in his court and held grudges for years. In short, he was a difficult, unhappy man. But the ruler had one important virtue. He knew he needed to change. He recognized that his misery was his own doing. So one day he sat down to, quote, make his hat the judge, which means he pledged to think seriously about his problem until it was solved, fixed. After a little thought, it occurred to this ruler that his temper was likely the result of poor nerves or perhaps a weak heart. So he summoned the best doctor in the land, hoping for medicine to cure his anger. The doctor felt his pulse, listened to his heart, examined his eyes and ears, and tapped his knees to check the nerves. And at last the doctor faced him solemnly and said, "I'm afraid there is nothing physically wrong with you." Well, the ruler bellowed, "You must have missed something. Of course there's something wrong with me." He rose and stomped in a circle. "I think the problem might be that you are no good at medicine." The doctor waited for the ruler's temper to subside, and then he gently said, No, the problem is nothing that an herb can cure. Doubtless you have a problem, but I'm afraid it is a problem of character. Most likely you were spoiled as a child and cried until you got your way. Hard as it must be, you must now grow up. Well, the ruler didn't care much for those words, but in fact they stung with the truth. He listened. "What you must do now," said the doctor, "is find the right spiritual medicine. Read every book of wisdom ever written. Listen to the advice of the greatest thinkers. Find a motto to live by that will give you patience and contentment so you do not become lost in joy or sorrow." The ruler took this advice to heart. "You're right," he finally admitted. "I should have done this long, long ago." So the next day, he summoned to his court an imam, a Muslim cleric, and a scholar. He recounted his problem to them, and they all shared their responses excitedly with them and brought their colleagues in, and they shared their responses, and they shared their responses. And rejecting all of their suggestions, the ruler said, "I do understand the difference between good and bad. It's just that I get angry too easily, or I'm so happy I make a fool out of myself. No one trusts me. I rejoice in others' misfortune if I can outsmart them. I get angry at the rain when it gets me wet. I pout when I'm not flattered. I'm mad when it's too hot, and I'm miserable if it's too cold." The ruler looked into the distance. "I always want something better than I have." "No," said the ruler, "I must find a way to guide myself. I want something short and simple to inscribe on my ring, which will never fail to guide me, a gem of wisdom that will work in every situation." Well, the scholar spoke up and said, "There's nothing wrong with your idea, Your Honor. There are many who are wise and learned within the city, within the country. If you must have it quickly, I would suggest you hold an assembly right away." "Yes, that's the best idea yet," said the ruler. "We'll send out letters and we'll call it the Great Conference of Calming Words." Every conference needs a title, right? Great Conference of Calming Words. And a week later, the conference began. Philosophers, poets, artists, scholars, and imams crowded into the rooms. One by one, each stood in front of the ruler offering advice. Thick books were consulted, songs sung, poetry recited, sermons offered. It was a dizzying array, but the ruler wasn't yet satisfied, complaining, "No, that's too long," or "That motto is childish." Nothing seemed to suit them, the ruler, and he began to lash out in frustration, just as he always had in the past. Well, just then a messenger arrived at the court. Dressed in homespun clothes, she stood to the side while the ruler read the message she had delivered. The crowd continued to be unruly, pointing out the shortcomings of this or that advice, and so the messenger, a good listener, understood exactly why the assembly had been called. As the ruler handed her the response, the messenger offered, "I believe I have a simple motto, sir, only 4 words long, which will meet your needs. With your permission, may I speak?" "Well," the ruler said, "I don't see why not. Perhaps you know something these men don't." So the ruler hushed the assembly and the messenger spoke. "Our ruler has asked for a short motto to guide his actions in every situation. It must protect him from pride when he is lucky and successful. Just as importantly, it must soften the blow of sorrow and disappointment." The messenger looked at the sea of stubborn faces in the crowd, but she faced the ruler and said, "I know of 4 words which can achieve this." She paused and then said, "This too shall pass." Chaos broke out in the hall. "That is a foolish saying. It will make him spineless." "How can that be a guide?" said another one. "It doesn't show right from wrong." "This is an old-fashioned way to look at things," shouted a third. But the ruler was occupied in thought, gazing at the messenger. Eventually the ruler spoke. "Actually, in my view, these 4 words might be the best I've heard today. They will help me to reflect in every situation, and they question a quick temper. They are soothing as well as simple. They will help me remember that all things are changeable. They remind me to accept the good with the bad, happiness with sorrow," he said. "Until better words can be found, these 4 words will be my motto." So he dismissed the assembly and sent the messenger away with the reward of a large pearl. He then had the words, "This too shall pass," inscribed on a plain gold band, which he wore on his hand from that day forth. Our last story this morning comes from the Lay of Alvis. Now, the Lay of Alvis is a poem collected as part of what we now call the Poetic Edda, a repository of the legends and myths of the Norse peoples of Europe. It tells the tale of the dwarf Alvis, who was promised the hand of Thrud, daughter of the Norse god Thor. Now, Thor knew nothing of this promise and argued vehemently with the dwarf one night. "I," said the god very slowly, and his eyes flashed so that Alvis began to quail. "I am Thor the hunter. I am the wide wanderer, and I am Odin's son. You'll never win and marry my daughter if I can help it." "Ah," said Alvis, and he smiled a pallid smile. "Well, I'll soon win your goodwill and your consent. I long for your daughter, and I will struggle for her." "Wise guest," said Thor, "I won't be able to stand in the way of your love if you can answer whatever I ask you about all of the worlds." "Tell me, Alvis, you're the dwarf who knows everything about our fates and fortunes. What is the name for the land that stretches all around us in each and every world?" "Humans call it Earth," the dwarf replied. "The Aesir say field, and the Vanir say the ways. The giants name it evergreen, and the elves grower. The most holy gods call it clay." "Tell me," said Thor, "Alvis, you're the dwarf who knows everything about our fates and fortunes. What is the name for the moon, child of the ocean, that we can all see in each and every world?" "Humans call it moon," the dwarf replied, "but the gods say mock sun. It's known in hell as whirling wheel. The giants named it rapid traveler, the dwarfs gleamer, and the elves time teller." "Tell me," said Thor, "tell me, Alvis, you're the dwarf who knows everything about our fates and fortunes. What is the name for the sun that we can all see in each and every world?" "Humans call it sun," the dwarf replied. "The gods say orb, and the dwarves Dvalin's delight. The giants name it Everbright, the elves fair wheel, and the sons of the gods all glowing." And the questions and the answers went on and on into the night. "Tell me, Alvis, you're the dwarf who knows everything about our fates and fortune. What is the name for the stillness, the settling peace in each and every world?" "Humans call it calm," said the dwarf. "The gods say the quiet. The Vanir say winds hush. The giants name it the sultry. The elves day's lull, and the dwarves day's refuge." And on into the night the questions went. "Tell me, Alvis, you're the dwarf who knows everything about our fates and fortune. What is the name for fire that burns for us in each and every world?" "Humans call it fire," the dwarf replied. "The gods say flame, and the Vanir say wave. The giants name it hungry biter, and the dwarfs burner. In hell it is known just as the hasty." Finally, Thor said, "I've never known one person to be the mind of such ancient wisdom." He smiled at his guest, a long, slow smile, and he slowly nodded his head. "But your own tongue has trapped you, Alvis. The sun's rays arrest you." The dwarf whirled round, but it was already too late. "The sun's rays arrest you," gloated Thor, "and they turn you to stone. And now the sun shines in my hall once again." Now, the Lay of Alvis had a teaching purpose, to present to those involved in... It also, by the way, goes on for 8 more pages. I cut it down for you today. But to present to those involved in creating the poetry of their culture, the skalds, a variety of vocabulary to be used in describing the many facets of the world in the manner of all the worlds. If you've explored any of the poetry of Northwest Europe, the Eddas, Beowulf perhaps, you've seen such a rich use of metaphor and descriptive vocabulary. The poem helped keep some of that vocabulary in the memory of its users. The story itself conveys meaning as well as its form and vocabulary. We see Thor engaged in trickery to avoid having to deal with the unwanted betrothal of his fathers. If you look at the Norse myths and legends, Thor is much more complex than he is in the Marvel universe, although he's wonderful there too. We see him flatter and praise Alvis so that he will show off all night and talk until the morning sun turns him to stone. Alvis is so certain of his superiority and so ready to boast and show off his deep knowledge that he fails to pay attention to what is going on around him. He doesn't see the trouble he's in because he can only see his own story and his own needs. I think that in the lay of Alvis, we see a warning, an invitation about letting ourselves and our self-importance get in the way of learning and seeing what is going on around us. Alvis was not at all humble as he entered the encounters told of in this tale. He knew how important and skilled he was, and he reacted with that mindset to dangerous and embarrassing results. He was so sure of himself, he didn't pay attention to what was going on around him. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit as we sing together our closing hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And we're going to let Emily lead us, but we will rise and sing together When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. The words are on your screen. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell a story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Please join me in reading these words as Reverend Ian extinguishes our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Before we depart today, I'd like to invite you to spend a little time on our patio following the service. We have wonderful coffee hour treats and coffee out there provided by our coffee hour elves. I guess we'll call them coffee hour elves, our volunteers who help make that happen every week. Connecting with each other, I hope, and telling some stories that you know. But also visiting our table about the proposed 8th principle. There will be folks out there to answer questions as well, and don't forget, there is the session in the community room afterwards. You might also pick up a blank emergency contact form to take home and fill out and then bring back to the office. This form, which is in a locked filing cabinet in my office, helps us know how to respond if you have an emergency in your life. It asks some of your wishes and who you'd like to contact. Bryna will be out by the table today and I have those forms for you and can answer your questions. She is also going to have some cards, which I'm hoping you'll write in, share your appreciation for Kurt Jordan, who has been our lead accompanist for the past years. Next Sunday will be his last Sunday in this role, and it would be wonderful to send him on his way with fond wishes and appreciation from us all. We'll share them with him during the service next week. As we depart this gathering, I hope that we will all continue to have open hearts and curious minds as we hear the stories of the lives and experiences and imaginations of our neighbors. That we won't let our own certainty and arrogance get in the way of connection. That we will understand that we each come to the truth of our lives on different paths. That we will weigh the advice and criticism from others along with our own self-knowledge. That we will remember where we have come from and imagine where we are going together, and that we will understand deep in our hearts, this too shall pass. Go in peace, my friends, to love and serve the world.